Hey everyone, Temporal here, and this time we are taking a look at this thread that popped up on the Overwatch University subreddit. I thought this was an interesting one because this is a little bit of a persistent mindset. It's been stronger and worse at times in players in the Overwatch University subreddit. It's always had some presence in players in general. I know it mostly comes from a people wanting to protect their own ego standpoint of they're going, hey, I'm doing the stuff that this guy doesn't say, and I'm not getting better. That's likely where most of this is coming from. There's some potential that what this is actually talking about is the really bad guides, the really clickbaity guides. There are a lot of really bad, really clickbaity guides out there historically, particularly coming from some of the bigger, more well-known channels that are these 5 things to gain 1,000 SR, this to move you from silver to gold, etc., that are done by people that, we're trying to cash in. We're trying to cash in early on getting views, getting things, and going like this. And the truth is, Overwatch, because everyone has very divided skill sets that they're missing, it tends to be less like some other games. Like we've seen in other games, you can more directly go, hey, get your warding right and you'll move from this rank to this rank. Hey, understand what baiting looks like, or understand defensive, or understand edge guarding, and you move from this rank to this rank, etc. Like we've seen that more in other games than we have in Overwatch, and I think that frustrates people when they come to Overwatch, because Overwatch is such a complicated game and such a team-based game. It's much harder to change one input and be like, yep, that's the way up. But anyways, I wanted to respond to this, react to this, all those good things, and see what we have here. So to start with, every guide I've seen to climbing out of low elo, specifically bronze and silver, has been wildly inaccurate and terrible. For golds and above, it actually makes sense and the guides are fine, which tells you that this person hasn't hasn't been to gold or above yet. Because everyone thinks that about, oh, the next rank is fine. But any advice for below has been failing me time and time again. In fact, after trying out these tips, I went from not being able to climb to going down rapidly in SR. Regular viewers of my channel will understand that going down in SR after implementing changes to your gameplay is pretty normal. It doesn't happen every time, but it's pretty normal, and we'll talk more about why in a moment. I think the main problem is that anyone who tries to advise people in low elos has never been there, so they think they can't do it well. So that's wrong on 2 counts. That's wrong on the count of some of the people who are giving advice actually have been there. Some of these players really did climb from very low places. I started pretty low at Overwatch, I can tell you that much. I think Spylo, when he was originally doing videos, was like when he first started was in like silver or gold. But anyway, those are just 2 examples. It's like lots of people have come up from low ranks, but even people who I don't think started as low. Like I don't know where MF, I never know how to say his name. EMF, what a bottle on Reddit. I don't know what rank he started from. Um, let's just pretend he started from higher, or even like it doesn't matter. So we know that there are people out there who did start higher who give perfectly fine advice to low rank elos. The game isn't like, yes, the game plays differently, but if you understand the whys and you make the changes, you will go up. Like it is not some wildly different game. And the reality is, when we send people down to those ranks, because we've also seen things like, hey, we've had massive Smurfs, and massive Smurfs do just fine getting out of the low ranks if they want to. Or we have people do unranked to GM challenges, or maybe they do unranked to GM challenges with an account that someone else initially placed low for them, or whatever the case may be. Or they get their friend's account because their friend quit the game, whatever. Like these things happen, and it's rare for these players to stick. Sometimes these players get stuck for a little bit. They do have to make adjustments to their gameplay. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes they do, but the majority of the time, they really don't struggle very hard to get up and out of those ranks and back to close to where they were. There's sometimes some plateaus, especially as they get like, oh, hey, it's a Masters player, and they get stuck in high plat because high plat doesn't function exactly how they like, but they don't get stuck there for hundreds of hours. They get stuck there for, wait, this is taking a bit, and it takes them, a week or so to figure out, oh, I have to change things a little bit. Okay, and I can get to why that is in a second. Okay. Is it something else? Is the advice good and I'm just an exception? It's not that you're just an exception, it's that you're competing against, like, the ladder is a distribution. The ladder is a distribution like this, And if you're in the big part of the distribution, you're competing, even though you're putting in time, you're playing the game, you're competing against a bunch of other people who also are competing, who are also playing the game, who have also perhaps been playing the game for 5 years. And if you want to get better than them, you can't just go, hey, I'm slowly getting better. You have to improve faster than they improve. Bronze or silver player now is much better than a bronze or silver player when the game started. A bronze player when the game started, the way out of bronze was literally making sure that your tech was okay and getting comfortable with the controls. Like, okay, does your screen work? Is your internet okay? Do you not regularly DC from games? Does your computer not regularly crash? Can you get more than 30 frames per second? And are you comfortable with the controls? Because you move your character as you want. Not necessarily your aim, but move your character as you want in terms of that stuff. And if the answers to that was yes in the beginning of the game, for like the first year or so, you were going to get out of bronze. That's not true anymore, and it's because everyone has gotten better. So to actually climb, you have to get better faster than other people get better. Does location play a factor in how it works? Not really. Some ladders are easier and harder than others, but not really. Please explain it to me. I am in pain from everyone just saying that I'm complaining and toxic for saying this. You're not toxic for saying this, but you're feeding into something that a lot of people want to hear. A lot of people who haven't been able to climb or who aren't getting better want to externalize it and go, remove it, say, oh, it's the locus of control is outside. I don't want to have it's not my fault, it's something else that is wrong. These other players don't know. Like, all that's going on here is, hey, this needs to not be, this isn't my fault. I'm doing everything right. I need to protect my ego, my sense of self. And that's fine. We're all human. Everyone does that to some degree. So, like, I'm not particularly concerned, bothered about that, etc. But one of the things of getting better is understanding that that's what you're doing. And even if you don't publicly admit to it, or even if you put on oh, well, that's not what's doing, finding ways to actually work on it and to actually get better. Yes, I did refer to Smash Semitic with edge guarding there. Um, I think I referred to League and Smash. Yeah, I think I mentioned those. Okay. So when it comes to this, let's now sort of go through this. So I did a post here, and we can jump to my post, but my post is just going to serve as a little bit of a guide here. Oh, I wrote too much. Oh, well, that's fine. So here's what I want to get to. Like, what I want to get to is I'm going to start with the first response to this. So if we go to the first response, this guy, unfortunately, the primary poster, didn't give us any examples, and he's specifically talking about guides. And, again, if he's really specifically talking about guides and he's talking about something from one of the channels that's super clickbaity, that has lots and lots of subscribers, that is like, oh, do this one thing, these 3 crucial tips, etc. Yeah, he could be watching some bad guides. And he might have naturally been steered to those because those are some of the bigger channels, and therefore YouTube is going to do a little bit more favor-wise to them. The titles tend to be more clickbaity, which also does well on YouTube, so not totally YouTube's fault. So he could have naturally been steered there, and that's what he could be talking about. But since they're on this subreddit, and this subreddit actually now does a pretty good job of filtering out that stuff. Like, it's not perfect, but it does a pretty good job of not letting those things in at this point. I'm going to guess what he's actually referring to is advice. He's referring to advice that either gets posted when he asks, gets posted when other people asks, or comes from VOD reviewers, or maybe written guides, etc. But if he's referring to the bad YouTube guides, there are definitely bad YouTube guides out there. And blah, to give us an example, do this one thing to climb fast. That one thing is just win the game. 100% of the games that you win give USR, which lets you climb. Yeah, you got it. You got it. Okay, so getting into this, if what we're talking about isn't like those super clickbaity guides, what we're talking about is stuff that we might see on this subreddit, and this subreddit is not perfect with their guides. There's sometimes bad advice being given. It's healthier than it's healthier than it has been for much of its history, but there is still plenty of bad advice given on here, but it's not bad advice generally aimed for the lower ranks that's happening. And this guy is saying every guide I've seen, which either means he hasn't seen very many, he's only watching the big stuff, or he's referring to probably some things that aren't guides, some things that are VOD reviews, some things that are good guides, etc. So here we go. So what I wanted to get to, since he's referring to this, What I wanted to get to is some of the advice is extremely good. This is the most upvoted comment here, or this is the most upvoted top comment here. So I want to use this because this guy gives an example. And whether or not our OP here would agree with this example that's being given, it's apparently the most agreed with thing in the thread, so plenty of other people do. So I want to address it. Some of the advice is good, but you're right. High elo players are ironically not in a position to advise low elo players because some of the advice is just wildly inappropriate. Very rarely. Is that true? What people need to do is take the advice relative to positioning, use of cover, technique, etc. that's applicable at all ranks, and shelve everything to do with meta, team play, comps, and so on. You can shelve almost everything to do with meta. You can't shelve everything to do with team play. There's selective parts of it that you could shelve, but it is much more selective than I think the average player thinks. I think like 70% of what gets talked about for team play is actually good to understand and know. You got to be very careful with this, and I'll go more into that later. Comms and so on. You can still have good comms. You can mute everyone and have good comms, or you can just leave comms. That's fine. What actually happens is that bad advice gets farmed out along with the good. Example of from this sub recently to a low silver Lucio: stay around your Rhine and use speed. That's fine advice. That is fine advice even in bronze or silver. Now, it's a little more complicated than that. That's been simplified, and it's perhaps been simplified incorrectly. But I suspect when it was originally given that the person who gave this advice originally, the original source of this advice, was probably either a VOD reviewer or a video teaching you how to play Lucio or something along those lines. And I am almost certain it had more context than this and more to it than this. Um, let's come back to that, which is precisely the sort of thing that gets Lucio players reported for sabotage and low silver. And something getting you reported for sabotage isn't a reason not to do it. Like if you play how low silver players think you're supposed to play, you're gonna stay in low silver. That's not really an argument right there, and isn't even occasionally applicable and useful advice until around mid gold. Is mid gold where that becomes useful? Do Reinhardt start taking good advantage of speed in mid gold? I would have guessed it was higher than that. People simply have to work pretty much exclusively on their own game until low gold at least. Working on your own game is the most important thing, but like if you want a shot call, if you want to have a carry level comms, that can absolutely win you games in silver and bronze. Comps don't matter much, only rely on team members that are demonstrably reliable. You're not good. If you're in silver, you're not good, generally speaking, at reading which teammates are demonstrably reliable. If you were, you would swap to Mercy and you'd hard pocket them. You'd go, oh, my Genji's reliable, I'll swap to Winston and I'll always go in with him. Oh, my Pharah's good at hitting rockets, I'll swap to Ball and I'll always go in and slam on what they hit. Like that's how this works. If you were good at this, you wouldn't need that advice. Anyway, try to time what you do with the bulk of the rest of the team. That's good advice. Play relatively independent characters. That doesn't really matter if you're doing a good job of timing to the rest of the team. Okay, so I want to get in here. I probably read more of this than I need to. Stay around Rhine and use speed. So this has almost certainly had its context dropped, but this is good advice. Even in silver, this is good advice. Now, that doesn't mean, as Lucio, that you can just go, hey, my Reinhardt is right here. I'm up here on this wall, and I just stay on speed the whole time no matter what, as long as my Rhine is in my aura. That's not what that means, but I can almost guarantee that the original source of this advice might have been reparroted by someone who listened to the original source of this advice and then commented on someone else who was struggling. But I can almost guarantee that the original source of this advice, whoever it was, whatever it was, and by I don't mean true original, I mean like, person who knows what they're talking about, etc., that then someone else is parroting, or person who did the VOD review, etc., most likely would have been, hey, you want to enable your Rhine, speed for your Rhine is good, specifically your Rhine wants his speed when he's going in, when he's rotating, when he's trying to manipulate swing distance with the other Rhine, when he's trying to stay away from a Reaper. Like, your Reinhardt wants speed, but he doesn't need his Lucio to just live on speed. As Lucio, what you actually want to do is you want to go, is my team moving in such a way that they can get benefit from speed? I'll swap to speed. That's great. Oh, they're not? My Rhine is just holding a corner? Great. I should be on heals. Oh, my Rhine is pushing up again. Okay, I'll give him speed for a moment. Oh, he's pulling back. I'll give him speed for a moment. Oh, he's holding his corner again. Okay, he can be on heels. Oh, he's just put his shield up to try and stabilize. I'll swap to heels. That's almost certainly the actual context that, again, the original advice was given in. But yes, it is very possible that someone what a simplified version of that, and you see this all the time. I just did a review for someone and they posted their notes and I thought it was great that they posted their notes, but you can see in their notes that they've simplified something, and in doing something, not this, I'm talking about a different one, in simplifying their notes, they've written something down that isn't quite accurate. And that happens. And yes, as a coach, you do want to do a better job of going, hey, let me try to address that. Let me try and go fix this, etc., because that simplified version really stops being true. And then you could say, oh, well, it's the coach's fault for not doing a perfect job of guessing exactly how it would be simplified, etc. They try. They try. I'm not too worried about that. But regardless, what we're looking at here is stay around your Rhine and use speed. You do want to use speed, but you want to use speed specifically when he's going in or out, and then swap to heels when it makes sense. But he is the person that, like, if you're just instead playing Lucio and going, hey, I'm just going to stay on heels the whole time, you're not building a skill very well. It might get you to gold. You might get to gold just by staying on heels the whole time and really not using speed except to react to ults. But even if we're reacting to ults, that's, properly better if we're holding our amp for ults and reacting to blizzards, reacting to blossoms, reacting to things like that. That would already make us a little better. But just staying on heels like that might get you up, but you'll have done nothing to build a skill that you'll need later, and you could very much have built the skill and used the skill correctly in those lower ranks. Like, there is no reason that you can't get your heal/speed timing correct, even in silver and climb. Like, if you put a good Lucio, a very good Lucio, you put a GM Lucio in silver and tell them, hey, you can't go Reddit, you can't go dive the opponent's backliners, they're still going to have great crossfades. If you put one of the more supportive Lucios, even if you put a Lucio who's generally not supportive, but say, hey, you have to be supportive, they're going to do just fine. They're going to get the right timings, and guess what? They're still going to win. And it's not going to be because their headshot accuracy is so good from up on the wall, though that's certainly going to help. It's going to, in large part, be because they get their crossfade timings right around their Reinhardt. Because again, if you're picking Lucio and you're not giving your Rein speed ever, or you're only giving your Rein speed for very, very brief moments, you're not helping him on his ins and outs, it just doesn't make sense to play Lucio. Like, you can literally be better just by literally go back to spawn and pick Moira. You will do more AoE healing. That's going to be more helpful. If you're not finding the heroes that are useful to speed boost as Lucio, even in silver, it doesn't make sense to be playing Lucio. And you could say, oh, well, you shouldn't play Lucio then. You should play Moira. Well, you could, but I don't like the giving that advice. I like going, hey, let's do this to actually build this player's skill so that they get better, and they absolutely can build the right skills to get out. And those right skills are the same skills that they'll use on the way up. That said, if you're a Lucio and you just more passively, let's say you're in a plat game and you just more passively go, hey, I'm going to use speed near my Reinhardt, your Reinhardt is in plat more regularly going to take advantage of your speed. So you just being on speed the whole time when you're near your Reinhardt is going to be playing better, and he is going to make better use of that speed aura than if you were down in silver and you just split data and speed. Because your Reinhardt is going to play better. Your Reinhardt is going to recognize that he has speed, and he's going to know how to use that better. He's also going to play naturally in a way that takes better advantage of speed. All those things. So, like, yes, you might have an easier time in plat, but you're still not actually doing this right. You're sort of like doing it more right than if you just stayed on heels down in silver, in plat, where your Reinhardt does this, but you're not actually getting it right. What's actually getting it right is crossfading for the appropriate timings. So, like, you might naturally see more success in this. You might see situations where the Plat Lucio player, who is generally on speed near his Reinhardt, struggles in silver because he doesn't have this skill yet. But, like, the actual skill that needs to be developed exists and is being taught correctly, I expect, by the guides, by the coaches, etc. Maybe not by the first comments, maybe not by the comments that show up, maybe not by some of the VOD reviewers, but we know where the majority of the VOD reviews for this sub come from currently. Okay. Um, there we go. Here's someone confirming the experience. 55 upvotes. That's painful. Preferred supports, bronze, and then they fixed it by redditing. Okay, you can fix it by redditing, but you can also fix it by playing a better support Lucio. You just have to play it better. And you might have to play it better than you play it in plat. You might. Like, if you're going to play it like that, you might have to do that. But that's fine because it just means you're going to move up. You're going to cruise up through the ranks faster once you do actually get that locked in, clicked in. Okay. What else did we have here? Oh, yeah, we had another one that I wanted to get to. Let's find my post because my post will find us what we need to. And I wanted to find this one. Okay. Okay, so here's another one. Can you give an example of bad advice that isn't applicable to low elos? And again, we're looking at this. This isn't from the OP. It doesn't have the little microphone there. Anything that assumes the members of the team are performing their roles somewhat effectively is bad. So stay behind your Rein, go back to your supports for healing, group up with your team is based on the assumption that your Rein's not an idiot, your supports are actually supporting, and your team is all invested as playing as a team, so it's not useful. Don't charge into the enemy team, use cover, prioritize keeping both Zen orbs deployed is good. Okay, so this is dangerous because this is saying go back to your supports for healing is bad. Sometimes it is. If you're Hammond and you're giving up a bunch of position to go back to your supports for healing, that can be bad. You'd be better off getting health packs. Not necessarily usually true though. Even in silver or bronze where they struggle with aim. Group with your team is based with the assumption that your Rein is not an idiot. See, this is a problem. Like, stand behind your Rein isn't always good advice, but group with your team or saying, no, I don't want the advice group with your team. If by group with your team you mean stack with your team, yeah, stack with your team is frequently not advice. It's not like, oh, yes, let's all stack as 6 and play. But play with your team from a timing sense is absolutely critical advice. It is critical. No, you are not allowed to say, my teammates are bad, so I'm not going to play with them. No, you have to use your teammates. Use. I do mean the word use. And if that seems like, maniacal or whatever, I don't care. That is how it works. You have to use the fact that your teammates are some level of a credible distraction. Even if you're massively, going, hey, this player's massively better than the SR they're in. Maybe it's a massive smurf. That's not a good thing, but maybe it's a massive smurf. Maybe it's an unranked to GM. Maybe it's someone inherited someone else's account. It doesn't really matter, but what you run into is this situation where you have to play to your team's timing. Even these players who are massively out mechanicking the other team are going to go, I am going to use my team. I might not need all 5 of my team to be a credible distraction, but I need some or all of the opposing team to at least partially be paying attention to someone else on my team. Someone else on my team has to be a credible threat that is drawing some eyeballs. And then I will pick off a backliner, and because my mechanics are better, I can pick off a backliner in a second. I can pick off the next backliner in 2 seconds, etc. And now I can clean up the rest of the team, and that's fine. Or I can clean up these 2, get out, and then 3 seconds later go in and clean everyone else up. And I just got 6 eliminations. You're going to see I'm playing Tracer, and I just went Tracer, red, Tracer, red, Tracer, red, Tracer, red. Okay, so I just got 4 eliminations here. I won this battle by myself. No, I didn't. Like, yes, I did win the battle by myself, but I won the battle by myself because I didn't actually try to 1v6. I used the fact that they weren't looking, and then I was able to snowball off of that with mechanical advantages that I have. Great. That's fantastic. That works. That's something that you do. Will not happen the overwhelming majority of the time if you try to go in even as Tracer, even as Widow, and just go even as Sombra, even as Doomfist. Will not happen if you literally go in on your own. You go, I have 3 teammates in spawn. I'm going to go in and fight these guys because my teammates are worthless. Your teammates might be almost worthless, but they're still worth something. Even if you're 3,000 SR better than your teammates are still worth something. And part of what makes you 3,000 SR better than your teammates is you actually understand, hey, what engagement timing looks like. I need the opposing team to be at least somewhat distracted by my team. I need something to happen. Even if my Ana is going to miss 12 nades in a row, when she finally hits a purple, I want to be there to get those eliminations. Like, that's what happens. And I won't if I get my engagement timing wrong. So, like, this, you have to be very careful about dismissing this advice. I know everyone wants to dismiss this advice, and the reason people want to dismiss this advice is twofold. It's because they want to be able to play the game. They don't want to just be waiting for other people to respawn. They don't want to be waiting for 45 seconds, a minute, etc., just waiting before they're allowed to go in because their team is staggering. And I get it. Overwatch can be frustrating because of that. It's like, what? Here's this game that has 10-second respawn, so you always get to play. It's not like other games where you get eliminated and you're out for the entire round. It lets you always play. But it doesn't actually let you always play because you do need to wait for your team to be available to be useful. Now, that's not saying you can't ever take a 5v6. That absolutely happens, and you'll especially see that as you go up the ladder. But that gets into a better understanding of positions that they've earned are worth more than the sixth person, etc. And time on the clock can be worth more than the sixth person. But generally speaking, no, you do have to wait for your team, even though it's frustrating to go, hey, I need to do this. Again, group with your team. I'm not saying you have to stack with your team, but you need to, timing wise, you need to desire wise be working in the same direction as your team at the same time as your team. So there's this, which is the 45 to 60 seconds of staggering, and there's also the desire to go, well, my team is worthless and I should be able to play without them because they're bad, and if they weren't bad I would be higher SR, which is again ego protection. So we've got wanting to play the game and we've got ego protection, because if my teammates weren't bad we'd be winning more and I'd be higher rank. Or I'd be winning this game if my teammates weren't bad. Like, my Winston is constantly feeding, it's my Winston's fault. Never mind that, I'm playing Ana and I've failed to, eliminate players. I've had multiple times where I could have eliminated that Pharah, but I missed 3 shots in a row. I could have eliminated that Genji, but I missed 3 shots in a row. I could have made sure our Tracer won a duel, but I missed 2 shots in a row. Never mind that happened. It's that my Winston is feeding to their Reaper too hard. It's always ego protection. It's not always ego protection, but these, I believe, are the 2 things that are leading to this mindset. Okay, I've ranted hard enough. I'll cover more topics here, but I've ignored chat too long, so let me catch you up here. Basically the entirety of your Overwatch. Yeah. There's more out there than that do it poorly, though. All the tips you need to break out of Bronze Silver is get high ground, have half a brain, and be semi-mediocre at aiming. I don't know that get high ground makes that list, and have half a brain is just like so big of a concept. Like, what counts as half a brain to you might be completely different than what counts as half a brain to someone else. So that's just too vague for me to get into, because like what I define as half a brain is like, yeah, that'll take you quite far. But yeah. Unrelated question: favorite character in Smash? I'm a sucker for Luigi. Tough call. I'm probably. I mean, I've obviously played more Melee than anything else. I've played the current game, but I've played more Melee than anything else. And I probably go with the Zelda Sheik from that, which, has been split, moved into different things, etc. But that's probably that's probably the character I've had the most fun on in Smash. You do get all people in comms quite a lot in ELO, even if people don't usually talk. Yep. Low ELO has its own meta, though, and you can get punished for not sticking to it. That's fairly true. That is fairly true. Blah's advice would be don't play Lucio in Silver. But I know Blah, and Blah's advice would be if there's never a Lucio on my team, I'd be way happier. Or Reddit Lucio. To quote Legal Lego, the answer is it depends. There you go. The Lucio advice is always be in the enemy backline. Something that's hard about helping your Rein as Lucio is that in the lower ranks, Reins don't know to engage with Speed Boost. Right, so you, in that case, need to go, hey, they don't know to engage in Speed Boost, so when they finally do get around to engaging, you give them speed. You don't give them speed to tell them to engage. You go, oh, they're actually engaging, so I'll give speed to them. That's what you have to do. But in Plat, in a higher rank, you might go, hey, my Rein knows to engage more often. My Rein knows to trade more often. My Rein knows that he's not a shield bot, so if I just stay on speed, he'll more often use it correctly. Whereas in Silver, he won't more often use it correctly. But the real answer isn't you can't use speed in lower ranks for your Reinhardt. Pocketing your Rein isn't valuable in lower ranks. It's I have to get my timing better. I have to get my timing better. I have to play it better than I might be able to get away with in Plat. But that's fine. It just means you'll cruise through Plat more effectively when you get there. Second paragraph. Oh yeah. I'll just view my teammates as meat sacks, and the enemy has to look at sometimes. That's fine. That's a fine way to do it. It might not be a very humanitarian way to do it, but it's a perfectly fine way to do it. I shoot my teammates so they can shoot the enemy. When you're Ana, that works. I also shoot the enemy so they can't shoot at my teammates. There you go. There you go. I saw Angry Llama suggest a Sigma player to not off angle since the player was player and play main, even though his other tank was Ryan, which I completely disagree with. Spilo did a whole hammer time on that. There was a whole Spilo reviewed Llama's review of the Plat Sigma, where he was telling a Plat Sigma not to off angle to go with his team, and Spilo correctly pointed out that that was wrong. Llama made a response video to that video that was attacks on Spilo, I think mostly comedy, etc. I don't think that's really in debate. I've already offered my thoughts on that. Like, you off angle with Sigma, you off angle with Sigma. That's not really news. Like, so like but I don't think that is all advice for low ranked players is so bad. I think that was bad advice. That was definitely bad advice. Technically, Plat isn't low rank, but that was technically speaking. Though most of how the Overwatch community thinks of things would consider Plat low ranked, but from an actual distribution standpoint, that's not true. But again, that's not most, and that's not even most of Llama's videos. And I think Llama now coaches Sigma more correctly. Hopefully he's fixed that weakness. I don't get to watch a ton of Llama. Obviously, I did a collab with him. I've watched a few things, but I believe it or not, most of us don't have time to watch a ton of each other's content in terms of like other content creators, all that jazz. I've never heard so many facts spit about this. Thank you for making this vid temporal. A lot of people need to hear it. Yeah, but they won't want to. Oh my gosh, temporal not saying high ground is win. High ground is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not sure that was worth elevating over some other things I might have gone with. Half a brain to you might be big brain to someone else. Yeah. Just play Broken Heroes, easy climb. Feel like the biggest skill to learn to climb is understanding what is happening in team fights while you're playing. Yes. Yes. Game sense is pretty big. It's funny when low ranks Ryan's asked their Lucio to swap to Lucio and a BAP. I mean, if their other support is a Mercy, it's not that funny. But yes. Yes. Lucio's probably heal bot a lot at low ranks anyways, doesn't help you much. Yeah, but they're not hitting shots either, so like, and it's not like most of the team knows how to use speed, it's just rough. Can you review Spilo's review of Llama's review of that? There we go. There we go. I think the current phase where that one is I think Llama did the review of the Plat Sigma player. Spilo reviewed that. And then Llama responded to that, and I think Spilo let it go from there. So if I were to review anything, I guess I'd be reviewing this. Okay. Uh, hmm. I'll flame Smilo, then take his advice to improve your coaching days. Hey, as long as people are improving, I'm good with it. You should watch some of the Bronze Bandit stuff for homework since the Scarves are going to battle the Bandits one day. I do watch some. I haven't watched, I watched a little of the first one. I'll watch some more of some of the others. I see a lot of guys that think my teammates actually see opportunities I give them. Can you elaborate a little? Can you elaborate a little there, Detweeks? Because like, what does that really? What do you really mean by that? Because like, some things are you can generally because there's two ways to improve on that. You can try more intentionally to give your teammates openings when your team can actually advance. Like if you're an Ana player and you're like, I hit a fat nade and no one took advantage of it. Was your team over here? And the other team was over here, and you hit a fat nade, and your teammates are Tracer and Reaper, because yeah, they're not going to take advantage of that. It's not going to happen. So instead, you want to go, hey, I hit my nade as. Oh, let me do this. So instead, I hit my nade as the teams were just about to engage or as they'd engaged. That's going to be a much better nade. I don't need them to see it to take advantage of it. They're going to accidentally take advantage of it. Just as an example. Some of the advice given can be detrimental in low ranks because the game plays differently there. Exceptions need to be noted. Talk to me, Nardstorm. Again, I responded to 2 examples in this. Give me more. Give me more. I'm happy to talk through a couple. I'm not saying that there aren't any. I'd in fact say that there are, but I'm really hesitant to let that go by as a blanket statement. I think the biggest thing that helped me climb to Diamond on Zen from Gold is supporting my DPS with Harmony Orb and playing in cover and prioritizing survival over hitting more shots. I can see it. I can see it. Sigma only plays off angles when he has a main tank like Ryan and Orisa. Yes, sort of. No, that's not even true. Like, if you look at the hybrid comp, the late 2020 hybrid comp that was the professional meta was you would have Sigma plus Ashe over here. Excuse me, you would have Sigma plus Zen over here. You would have Ashe plus Mercy over here. And then you would have Ball and Tracer doing something over here. So depends. Are you considering this the main angle with our Sigma plus Zen? Because this looks like, it's okay. If he's on one angle, these guys are on a second angle, these guys are on a third angle. Like, it becomes a what are you considering the off angle? And even remember, just because something's down main doesn't have to mean it's the main angle. Like, you can go, hey, if my team is pushing through left, I can off angle on main. Like, those are things that can happen. So, like, it's you do sort of you go as Sigma, you're off angling even, and there was no Rhine in that comp. That was my point. There was no Rhine, there was no Orisa. This was a Ball that was the partner. But you can play main because you can go as Sigma. Hey, I can play main because my Ball and my Tracer are creating. I don't know why that's a J. You could get away with playing main because your Ball and your Tracer are on different angles over here, so you're still a third angle or you're still a second angle. You could get away with it, yes. That's to say you don't have to strictly go, well, I better play main when my team. I bet it doesn't. It's not strictly a I take over as Reinhardt when I don't have a Reinhardt. That's not what Sigma does. Like, yes, he can be on main, but that's because main has become a different angle. He can also be on an angle over here, over here. Threw my grenade 400 yards away, and it hit the ground 15 seconds later. Like I'm a trebuchet, but no one on my team got an elimination off of it. Exactly. Like I shatter or get a Zarya pick as Rhine, but my teammate always shoots someone else like Fair and Mercy than the other Rhine or the other squishies. Okay, so you hit a shatter as Rhine. You flatten some of the opposing teammates or some of the opponents, and your team soldier or Ana or whatever decides to shoot at someone that wasn't shattered. Fine. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. I think they would have an easier time if they went, hey, we're going to shoot at the flattened targets, but were you not in a position to follow up on your own shatter at all? If you can follow up on your own shatter, you're going to get an elimination, or you're going to get serious damage chunked. And these people aren't doing anything while the rest of your team is shooting at this guy, so they have a disproportionately high chance of eliminating this guy. Fine with me. Plus, this guy's not going to be bothering you as hard because he's being locked down by 2, 3, 4, 5 people, whatever. But more often, what's happening when Rhine players complain about, oh, no one follows up on my shatters, is there's this thing called a corner, and there's this thing called the enemy team, and there's this thing called the Reinhardt's team. And the Reinhardt goes, aha, shatter. Dude, there's a wall. Like, there's a wall. The reason you were able to get a shatter here is because the other team was thinking, well, you're not going to shatter us here. Your team can't follow up on it. Like that's how that works. Now, it can still work because you can still go, hey, I can get a follow-up elimination off of myself. Even though I shattered 5, I'm only going to eliminate 1, and then I'm going to come back. Or I'm going to eliminate 1, and then my shatter is going to be over by the time my team gets here. But that's fine because my shatter got 1. Anyway. The best example of that is your VOD the other day when an Anna slept a Rhine next to her, but the team didn't follow up on it, things like that. The best example of what becomes the question. That happens, sure, and it's annoying. Okay, maybe you mean that as an example of the game plays differently, but like again, we talked about what the right answer there was, which is you sleep the Reinhardt and you then just leave it alone. Or I think we slept a hog in that case. I think it was a hog. Maybe we're thinking about different ones. Where you go, hey, slept the hog, and then they stared at it forever, and that was disappointing. And that happens even in higher SR games. We've all seen GM games where the Anna sleeps someone, and then they just have to leave because they realize very quickly that they're not going to get help dealing with it. And that's fine. It's better to leave and have it CC'd than not. That's not an exclusive to low rank thing. Low rank players need to adapt more to a team's bad players than higher ranks. I don't know that that's true. Low rank players need to adapt more to a team's bad plays than higher ranks. Oh, okay. Sure. Sure. There's something to be said for that. This is especially shown in unranked to GM videos because players don't always follow what GM players' thought processes. Oh, absolutely. That's absolutely true. Yes. And that's what I was referring to with the Lucio speed thing, where it's the if you actually understand the why and you're doing the why and you're not just doing the action, but you actually understand the why and you're doing because of the why, you're going to have your speed on at the same time. If you're just doing, hey, hey, I'm supposed to be on speed for my Reinhardt, it's not going to work well. And you have some of that in those when the GM players are running through. They've done their thing, and what works for them in higher ranks, they have to adjust, but that's because they didn't really properly remember why they were doing what they were doing. Yeah, we talked about that. This is where those GM players hard carry and eliminate everyone. Yes, but they do it off of the timing of when everyone else is engaged there. Or when their team is a credible threat. Like if you're a tracer left over in enemy backline from a previous fight and you wait for your teammates to group 5, you might just never play. You need to go when you think you have the best chance. But when you have the best chance is for sure going to be when some of your teammates are alive and a credible threat. You might go, I'm mechanically good enough that the opening I need is smaller than a player at this level would need. So you might go, 3 of my teammates are alive and shooting at the other team, and 1 of them is in spawn, and 1 is the way back, and 6 of the opponents are alive, and this is enough for me. This is enough for me to go do it because I can get 2 eliminations and then get out and then go back in and finish it up with my 3 remaining teammates. And even if one of them gets eliminated and we're down to 2 remaining teammates, we can still do it. The more mechanically good you are, the more you can do this. But I guarantee you that a big part of what's making you better than the players over here, if you're smurfing that hard, if you're GM, if you're whatever in a lower ranked game, is your understanding of the timing. And you're even if you have even if you have 5 teammates over here and you're over here alone as Tracer, and there's 6 opponents here, and 5 of them are looking this way at you, and 1 is looking at the opponent, you're not going in. Even if you're mechanically way better than everyone else in the lobby, you're not going in when 5 of those players are looking at you. You're waiting until they turn and deal with that. So I'm very hesitant to agree with that, Nardstorm. Like, yes, the more mechanically better you are than your opponents, the more ability you have to go, hey, this is enough of a window for me to exploit. My Widow peeking over here, my Zen throwing a shot over here, that's enough of a window for me to exploit. Go in, get an elimination, get out, get 2 eliminations, get out, whatever the case may be. But you're still using your teammates' timing. And again, you might not get to take 6v6s. And the more mechanically better you are, the more you can go, hey, we're going to take a 5v6. We're going to take a 4v6, whatever the case may be. The more ability you also have to recognize when it's not really a 6v6 because you're better at tracking opponents and you go, hey, we're down 2 people, but they're actually down 1 person, and they're down 1 person right now, but their 1 person is going to be back faster than our 2 people, so I want to take this fight now. Yes, the better you get at that type of thing. Um, Unfortunately, can't stay the whole stream, but love your work, Temporal. Thank you, Starfield. Oh, Starsfield. I've seen your stuff. Okay, got it, got it. Okay, thank you, thank you. You've addressed that before, but that was the first example I thought of. Trying to play Sigma as a main tank can be really painful. I can confirm. Fair enough. Response to the tweaks. A Gen Z man. The enemy team has the exact same chance of not falling up on the enemy Ryan Shatter over a significant number of games. Yeah, your skill makes the difference. Um, the best example of no fall I can think of is when, as a tank, you engage with hammer swings, pile drive, or even mines. The rest of your team stays still at the choke, looking at the enemies. Yeah, and it sucks. No, it absolutely sucks that when you're playing those aggressive tanks, particularly the Winston or the Ball, and it's like, oh, look, a Winston or a Ball went in, they did what should be a good engage, and their team doesn't follow up. But usually what's actually happening there is there's 2 issues. One of which is, yes, the core is not as fast to follow up as it would be in higher ranks. Totally agree. The core is not as fast to follow up as it would be in higher ranks. But the other issue is the higher ranked Winston or the higher ranked Hammond isn't is actually better at checking and seeing how ready is my team. So even though it looks like they get faster follow-up, part of that is because yes, they do get faster follow-up. The core recognizes better when this happens, but part of it is that these guys go, "Hey, I need to do this when my team can help me." And this is exactly the same as the Lucio thing. This is exactly the same. Whereas these players get better, these players might be successful in Diamond by going, "Hey, I can see that my team is live. I can see that my team is close. Now I'm going to go in and make my move." And yep, sure enough, these guys follow up. But if you get really good, what actually happens is these guys can see my Reaper is actually taking the flank. My Widow's actually ready to peek. My team actually has health. I know what the cooldown trades look like, etc. Okay, now I'm going to go and etc. And they actually have it informed. They've actually tracked it. They've actually got that information. And then they go in when their team is truly ready, and that's going to win them more games. But they might skate by in Diamond or in Plat by going, hey, I just go when my team is mostly in position and it's a 6v6, and I get as many 6v6s with reasonable engagements as possible, and that'll win you some games. And it'll win you games probably better in Diamond or Plat than it will in Silver. Maybe. But the adjustment that you make in Silver is you go, okay, I read my team better, and I might have to read it better than a Plat, to go, hey, I went and got this. But this is exactly the same as the Lucio. You read how ready is my team really. Because you're right, they're not going to follow up as well. But if the Winston or Hammond goes in, as their team already has forward momentum, that team's going to continue to have forward momentum. That team's going to go in. And this is also a different existing playstyle that we're talking about, and this playstyle sees use in both ranks. You might go, hey, this playstyle is easier to get away with. The thing where you go, hey, the supportive Winston, the supportive Hammond, that like the Winston that jumps on top of someone that got hit by a fair rocket is a different style of playing Winston than the initiator Winston. And that's fine. You can absolutely do that at either rank, but that might be easier to get away with. That might more consistently reward you in lower ranks than it does in higher ranks. And that's perfectly fine. That doesn't mean that teaching someone, you can still teach someone engagement timings properly for a more initiator style Winston. You can still do that, but they're going to do it, and they're going to have to do it off of, hey, my team is already walking forward. My team is already looking like they actually want to aggress. That's fine. Like, it's harder, but it's just like the Lucio example. If you make sure your team is actually ready before you go in, even in silver, you're going to see success. Also, let's be serious. The Winstons in silver and the Hammonds in silver engage in such a way that they get blown up too hard, just like the Winston that we reviewed literally last night, where it's like a Plat Winston, a Diamond Winston, a Masters Winston would have engaged, would have had the better understanding of the 4 different levels of engagement, and wouldn't go for a level 4 engagement when they're actually only set up for a level 2 engagement. As Ryan, my usual peeve is passive support players who are glued to payload or point, making it impossible to take space you could otherwise get. That can be annoying. Uh, a lot of time, advice given is wait for your team to group up, but it's not always mentioned what to do if you just can't ever get them to group up. Can't wait forever. Yeah, but I think most of us cover that often enough. Like 6v6 or 6v better, or 6v whatever is your preference. If you're not going to get that, you just have to make the calculation and go, okay, I don't think we're going to get this, or I think by the time we get 6v6, we're going to have given up another 2 minutes off the clock, so I'll take the 5v6. I don't think we're ever going to get 5v6 because I think we have 3 people on our team who are literally just pressing W and feeding. Literally just pressing W and feeding out of spawn every time. Well, we're going to try to sync this up, the other 3 of us players, with one of them. If 2 of them happen to line up, we'll try to sync it up with both of them to get a 5v6, etc. It sucks. You're probably going to lose that game, but I think that gets covered fairly often, truth be told. Like, it doesn't get covered every single time that someone says, hey, group up with your team, hey, wait for your team, but that gets covered often enough that I think that's pretty well-known advice for anyone who's claiming every guide. Like, okay, well, if every guide refers to 2, sure, you could run into this. If every guide refers to 20, I don't think so. I don't think you've managed to miss this unless you're watching the crud stuff. Teams can also take 6 years to rotate through a joke. Absolutely. But what is the standard for a shatter? What do you mean, what is the standard for a shatter? Like, we were referring earlier to shattering around corners. We were referring earlier to shattering the opposing team and your team shooting at someone who wasn't shattered, which can be fine. Most painful difference to play into is his game. In this game is a main tank difference. That's probably true right now. I would invite you guys to think back a couple years ago to when a widow difference was the most painful thing to play into. That happened. But a guide for Winston that said there's only one thing I need to do said press shift, cleave damage, and you just win as Winston. There you go. There you go. There are support tools that make it easier for main tanks to play theirs, but man, it hurts my soul. Yep. As in standard. Like, what's the question I should ask myself when shattering? Oh, the question that you should ask yourself when shattering is the same question that you'd ask when looking to use a lot of ults. Like, ults are sort of just super strong engages. Ults are like hard commits to an engage. That's sort of what they are. So what you should ask yourself when you're shattering is, okay, if I commit to this fight, if I commit this resource that's on a really long cooldown, is my team able to follow up? Can we get value? And if you're shattering around a corner, as long as you can get an elimination and survive, yes, you can get value. But you're not going to do it if your team is already down 2. If it's a 4v6, you're not going to do it. If it's a 5v4, you might do it. If it's a 6v6, you probably will. But the timing here, the questions for your shatter is going to be, is my team ready for this? Can I get value out of this? Do we have the resources? This is the very similar situations you make to, am I going to hard engage in more normal ways? Like, are we going to push through the enemy team? Are we going to fight the enemy team? Are we going to drive the back? Are we going to tank trade a little bit? Or are we just going to, are we going to tank trade? Are we going to retreat? Are we going to hard commit? Which of those? And a shatter is an enhanced version of a hard commit. It's an enhanced version of you committing to brawl. So your question should be, is my team here? Can my team commit if I commit? Like, again, if we're looking at this corner here, and you're here, and your Ana is way back here, and the other team is grouped here, you're going to have a hard time committing on this. But you might do it anyways if your Tracer is over here, and your McCree and D.Va are right here in the corner with you. You see how that works? Like, it's always a question of, okay, if I take this fight right now, is my team able to do work? That's all. Mm-hmm. The general advice for Ana Mercy comp is Ana focused tanks, Mercy focused DPS. However, it's not often noted what Ana should do if Mercy is overfocusing tanks. What Ana has to do if Mercy is overfocusing tanks is Ana has to shift into the more offensive side of her kit. So she has to go more for I'm going to hit off angle nades and sleeps, and she has to go for more I'm going to hit offensive shots. I'm going to paralyze their Genji by never letting him get to our portion of map control with full health. I'm going to um, paralyze the. I'm going to put pressure on their Ana, their Zen, put pressure on their Mercy. She's going to have to play more into the offensive side of her kit if Mercy is just soaking up every little bit of healing. It's not optimal, but it's what she's going to have to do. Like, it's this is optimal, but she's going to have to rely more on aggressive plays that are going to be more, hey, I'm getting pressure, and specifically I'm getting pressure on squishies that makes them uncomfortable. Ryan v Ryan is pretty hard to win if there is an Ana difference, to be honest. It's got to be a pretty big Ana difference for that to be true. But the Rhino always gets blamed. Like, if your Ana is 15% worse than their Ana, you're mostly fine. Now, if your Ana is 15% worse than their Ana and, they have a Zarya and you have, I don't know, a Hog, for example, or you have a Hammond, for example, yeah, then it starts to get worse. Or if, like, you're playing the Rein and your teammates are a Tracer and a Genji who are doing whatever, and they're playing a Rein that has a Reaper and a Doomfist, sure, okay, even if you both have Anas, like, yeah, that can suck a bit too. But, like, mostly, I don't know, you can make up for small. You can't make up for a 50% difference, even a 30 or 40% difference, but 15 isn't so bad, at least in my experience. Bait that nade. Mm-hmm. For the Fiend and being teammates writing in chat, are you guys allergic to grouping up? Has worked for me a couple times, trying to make it sound like a joke. It can. Yeah, you can use that solution, I suppose. It can also go the complete other way. You missed Plan B temp, Flame Mercy to pocket DPS. There you go. You can also reestablish roles like, hey, Mercy, I'll pocket tanks. You enable Genji. You enable Pharah. You enable McCree. You can try and do that reminder. Um, if you have a Pharah or Echo, that's more Ana to heal than most others. Not if you have a Mercy on your team as Ana, though. If you're going to play support in the low levels, learning how to work with Mercies who focus on frontline healing is pretty much mandatory. You're going to get a lot of them. Yep. I sometimes press Q when I'm low as a panic button to make sure that I survive so my teammates survive. That can make sense. That can make sense, but you're then trying to use it. I mean, that can make sense. You got to be careful with that. I think you're talking from a Ryan perspective. The offensive style of play is hard to actually find someone telling players to do that. These edge cases are often overlooked. That offensive style of play, in that case, it's hard to actually find someone telling players to do that. These edge cases are often overlooked. That's fair. That's actually a fair critique. I would say that's true, that most Ana guides are not telling their Ana how to play with the Mercy that's mooching up all the heals. I think that's a fair complaint. I think I do it. I know I do it. But I don't really know that I've seen someone else cover that. So yeah, okay, fair point. Though at low elos, you should just stop overthinking it and heal anything that needs healing and not gripe about whose job it is. Sort of. When you're not sure what you're supposed to do in a fight as D.Va, what's the best thing to do? When you're not sure what to do in a fight as D.Va, what's the best thing to do? That's hard for me to generically answer because it really depends on the phase of the fight. If you don't have anything better to do, booster up to high ground so you control the map better. If the fight's already sort of broken out, you can't necessarily do that because you committing your boosters somewhere is compromising somewhere else in the fight. You're potentially compromising the front line or compromising the back line by using your boosters to go either place. So you sort of need something to react to or preempt, etc. So like the if it's safe, take an off angle, take high ground. That's what you're looking to do. More generically than that, I don't think I can tell you because D.Va is such a plug the hole type hero. Sometimes she's going to go forward, sometimes she's going to go back. But I would say like more generic advice would be either figure out who on the opposing team you need to shut down, be that McCree, Doomfist, Roadhog, whatever, and then go work about shutting them down, or follow up on a teammate doing work aggressively. Go into one of those two things if you're not sure what to do. So like if you're finding, hey, my Ashe is hitting that, I want to go ahead and dive and, finish that off, etc. But more often I'd probably lean towards shut down someone who's being annoying, shut down the Ashe on high ground, shut down the tracer that's showing up in your back line repeatedly, etc. And play in a way that you'll consistently be able to shut them down. Okay. Let's take a look. Healthy players greater than tilted other support and tilted players in spawn. That's true. Uh, Mercies who fight me for healing grind my gears. Yeah. As Ana, yeah. I don't heal much as Lucio, honestly. You need to deal some as Lucio. You definitely need to deal some as Lucio. Like during the, you sort of want to be on speed at the beginning of the fight. You want to be at speed when the events in the fight happen. Like, hey, someone's using an ult on their team, someone's using an ult on our team. You want to be on speed if you're trying to leave the fight. But during a lot of, you want to be on speed if a big play happens. But during a lot of the just fight part of a brawl, of a dive, etc., or even of a poke phase. And when you're definitely both in just poke phases, you do want to be on heal. Like there's definitely time to be on heal, and if you're not, you can struggle to keep up with your ult. I've come out of games with bronze healings, with how much I've probably overhealed / speed reddited. Okay. If you're playing a Reddit Lucio, yeah, you're gonna be even lower. Because when I get eliminated, the whole team gets eliminated. So my brain says ooga booga. Okay, I see what you're saying, but Overwatch isn't about winning just one team fight. That's why I was confused since you said you were redditing. Okay. 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 So I've got time for maybe like two more questions here. So if you guys have questions, get them in chat now. If you guys are enjoying the content, please do like and subscribe, as that helps me out quite a bit. Tells me you want more stuff like this. Tells me that, hey, you like this, etc. Or if you want to get coaching, you can join my Discord. Also, if you want to catch this stuff live so that you don't end up in the situation Game Buster is here, where he's sad he missed this live, you can, in the Discord, go ahead and go to the channel that is get notifications, and you can react to get the watcher role. And what that'll do is it'll allow anyone who wants it to get pings whenever I go live for a video. And these are much more reliable than YouTube's bell for getting notifications when I go live. So if you want to catch this stuff live so you can see these right when they happen, so you can ask me questions on the air, the way to do that is to get that watcher role in the Discord there so you can get the pings and be here to ask questions. Okay. Let's see. I feel OP's message though, but he's wrong in my experience. Yeah, no, I totally understand the OP's message, but either he's watching really bad guides, which is understandable because the YouTube algorithm will probably naturally point him towards them, or he's protecting his ego, which I understand. It's a very human thing to do. Quickly come up with long questions. Temp, I need to know the meaning of life. That's an ask temporal question. I can answer it, but it's an ask temporal question. What is 1 plus 2? It's 3. It's 3. And don't you dare try to use new math or uh, different ways of knowing to try to change that. Uh, the meaning of life is simple. Get good at Overwatch. There we go. Maybe we can have him do a complex math proof. No, if this pivot's too far from Overwatch right now, I just won't answer the question. I'm generally happy to answer questions that aren't Overwatch related, but you guys need to, either, well, I just don't have time to answer those right now. Ask Temporal is the real way to get those answered, but yes, I'll usually answer them at the end of videos. What's 2 plus 2 plus 2? It's 6. It's 6, darn it. Okay. Okay, that's going to do it. Again, if you guys are enjoying the content, please do like and subscribe. Really helps me out. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call it. No, I've got some team coaching to do. I'll have more stuff later, but I'm probably not going to have anything up or streamed for a couple hours at least. Thanks, guys.